So the triad of fulfillment, he said number one, it's relationships. And I think we all understand that. If you're living life alone and not contributing to anybody or dependent on anybody and not in community with anybody, that's a big element of fulfillment. He said number two, it's service to others. It's work beyond ourself and our own personal pursuit and gain. And I think we all understand if we're just wired on what's in it for me and my interest and my hobbies and all that kind of stuff, that can lead a narrow life. And he said number three, a sense of purpose. And what's relevant to this discussion is I'm like, how amazing is it that we're in a business where we can live in those three areas constantly? I mean, how many occupations out there can you really say? I mean, you have coworkers in most places, but I think for a lot of people, that's not necessarily a net positive. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Usually it can be a murky situation, right? There's a lot of rules to follow in corporate. There's a lot of boundaries and politics and that kind of stuff, right? That we don't have to navigate here. I mean, our business is literally built upon the service to others and what we do every single day. And that gives me incredible fulfillment. I mean, I've talked at length about that, and I think many of you could relate to that. And then obviously the purpose to have a place where I can simultaneously, obviously service is a big part of that purpose, but the purpose to support my family, reach our goals, go through personal development. I mean, there's so much more attached to that. And I'm going to spend some time personally. I'm just going to tell you guys on, like, just for me personally, on building that out, on what does that mean specifically to me? Because what I think I found is I'm happiest in this business when I'm really connected to what I'm doing. When I'm just going through the motions and this is just about chasing another client or another teammate, or where did that rollover go and why hasn't this paid? When it just becomes that, that's when I start feeling really like unfulfilled and unmotivated, and you trend towards drudgery. And I guess that happens to me a couple times a year, like where I'm like, why am I feeling like I'm feeling? Why do I not want to go do that meeting right now? Normally I would want to go do that, right? Guys, there's Tuesdays. It's not every Tuesday. It's not even most Tuesdays. Every once in a while, I'm like, "Ah, I got that team training. I gotta like." It just becomes like another thing to like work into my schedule. And so I'm getting better at asking, why do I feel like that? I'm probably losing a connection somewhere of why I'm doing this, or I'm letting something else dominate me over here, or that kind of thing. So I thought that was really fascinating for what it's worth. But I wanted to transition to our business, and I want to give you guys a couple of things that I'm thinking of, because one of the things that I've realized along the way is the longer you're in this business, and this will be a bit on Dallas, the longer you're in this business, the more you just think naturally the way that you used to have to struggle for. So everything was hard and uncomfortable and awkward when I got started. Everything was intimidating. Calling people was intimidating. It was awkward. It was uncomfortable. Starting a business felt scary and daunting. Signing my first office lease seemed really scary. And, I mean, all these thoughts of like the whole programming I've been raised with that many of you could relate to is, that just felt risky. And what if I was full of the what ifs, right? What if I can't pay the rent? What if this isn't the right spot? What if, whatever, all those things, right? And it just, those things can just consume you. And what those thoughts ultimately do are just freeze you, like you're like a deer in the headlights, and that leads to not calling people, not talking to people when you bump into them in real life, not engaging in conversations, and just and so I'm hopefully going to make some important points, because I'm going to tell you guys the things that I have to watch for me and what I learned, but I think they all relate to where you're at in the business and what you're doing this year. But what I learned is, as I've gone to big events and as my vision has been stretched, I don't, I just think about risk fundamentally differently than most people. So most people think about the risk of, what happens if I do this and it doesn't work out? What happens if I invest this money and the market goes down? What happens if I try this business and it doesn't work? What happens if I call that person and they say no, and then they think something weird about me? They think of like the negative side of it. And I don't think I realized until this morning when I was preparing some notes for this meeting, that I actually have flipped that on its head. And so when I look at risk, I always think about the opportunity cost. I always think about, well, what would happen if I don't invest? What would my life look like had I not gone down the road of starting this business? What would it be? I mean, I could look at each of you on this call, and not all of you are direct to me, but like what would happen if I didn't recruit that person, and it wasn't part of my life, or if I didn't talk to this person who led me to this person who led me to this person who led me to some of you, that kind of thing, right? And you think about all those things, and I want to give you guys some numbers here and some things to think about because there's two things I want to talk about. I want to talk about a path to success, and I want to talk about the miracle of compounding because I think we get those two things wrong. I think they're two things that all of you have heard about ad nauseum in your life. And if you've been with us for any extended period of time, you've heard these things at trainings and you've read books and you've listened to podcasts and you're surrounded by other people that say similar things. And these are buzzwords on social media. But 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 maybe you're surrounded by so much of that you don't realize that you're not actually applying any of those things. And so I just want to talk to you about parlay one idea. So I was just in our new office this morning. Spent a bunch of time yesterday. It's construction's moving like crazy now. It's really fun to start seeing some finishes, and I got some photos. I won't share my screen and show. I'll post them later today. Some updates, but the drywall's all done. Cabinets were delivered yesterday. So the next month's going to be really fun as all these finishes start coming into play. But I know this office has been a bit of a something to be excited about, but also something to joke about amongst our team. And I've probably been leading the cause on that. It's taken longer than expected. And isn't it true of life that most of what we want ends up being harder than we thought it was going to be and took longer to get there than we thought? Like if you really think about it, isn't that really true of the things that are important to us? We always tend to underestimate how long it's going to really take to get in shape or accumulate a certain amount of money or whatever the case is. And maybe that's not all bad. Maybe if I knew, I told Alec last night, I said, I don't know the answer to the question. I'd be biased. I couldn't possibly honestly answer this. But the question I asked myself and him was, if I knew it would take 14 months to build this office, would I have gone this route as opposed to a different route? Impossible to answer. I knew it would have been a something I would have debated more for sure, at a minimum. Now, the fact that we're here on like with 1 month to go and you're starting to see it all come together, like, hey, now we're in a great position, right? But isn't maybe it was great that I didn't know how long it would take because I don't know if I would have started on the road towards this if I didn't know that. I mean, does that parallel our business a bit? I think sometimes, and I'm trying to make a connection with you guys because I know each of you have goals right now, and some of you just said that. Some of you just said goals connected to I need to get out of the current occupation I'm in and would love to be in this business full time. I need to make more money in this business to be full time, or I am full time, but I need to have a bigger business, a bigger team. And so we're all on some level there. And so I just want to tell you guys what we need is massive activity. And we don't have to know how all the dots are going to connect, but we just got to throw more at it than we think, you know? And so I'm going to give you guys a couple numbers. And the numbers, I'm going to give you guys some real numbers here in a minute. And in my preface to this is I'm not sharing any numbers with you guys to impress you, or to I have no agenda. I'm just being radically transparent about things to give you some concrete things, because sometimes I kind of surprise myself. So when this office is done, this has taken probably, let's call it 9 to 10 months longer than expected. When we're finally done with it, it's cost me a lot more money than I thought going in. Um, and it's taken a lot more time and attention and energy than I anticipated. I just kind of thought going in, like I wasn't a fool. I knew it'd take some time and energy. I just underestimated how much it would take, all the finishes, all the design, all the stuff to manage. And by the way, my attention to detail is a lot higher than most. I'm totally OCD on some things, and I freely admit that. And so I've probably grinded on some things that none of you guys will ever notice, but they're important to me. But let me give you guys some numbers, you guys. I will, when it's all said and done, have put in $200,000 of personal cash into this facility and easily put hundreds of hours of work in the last 14 months into building this out. Now, you could say if I called up to pick a name you guys all know, if I called up Bill Mitchell and told him that, he'd be like, "Are you crazy?" I've kind of told him that, and he kind of knows that a bit, but he'd be like, "Are you crazy? Like, why are you spending that much money on an office?" And it's the reason I'm doing it is because I love what we do so much and it's so important. But I just thought it'd be cool to like be in a position where I didn't compromise on anything because I've compromised my whole life, on office stuff, right? On but primarily budget limitations, all sorts of stuff. But I'm like, what would it look like? I mean, I'm going to spend a lot of time at this facility as hopefully some of you will. I want to walk into a space that's just a space I want to be at and a space I want to bring people to. I want it to say something when people walk in without me saying anything. I want it to be an experience, and it's just going to be incredible, you guys. But 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 I said that to make a really important point, you guys. And this is what I want you guys to write down and think about. I'm s- I actually just totaled that 200,000 up like a week ago because I'm doing some like year-end tax planning for last year and stuff like that. And I knew it'd be like 150. I didn't quite think it was going to be 200. And you guys, it surprised me a bit, but I wrote this thought down. I'm so conditioned to a process of paying the price upfront and in full before the reward that I don't consider it a burden. And so the broader takeaway of this is it kind of surprises me at how little not having an office has hurt me in terms of frustrating me because I'm just like I'm so used to, dealing with delays and obstacles in areas of life. And you guys, I just think that's a path to success. So I want you guys to all consider this year. Um, Anything you want to accomplish, the price needs to be paid upfront before the reward. Guys, it was really cool. It's a different experience walking in today and seeing finished drywall and cabinets in there. It's the start of some finish kind of work. It was a really cool experience. And I'm like, think about the upfront investment of money and time and mental energy that I had to put in just to start seeing a little bit of finished result. And I think that that's the kind of programming that it takes to really win on this platform or as an entrepreneur anywhere for that matter, because we're so conditioned in life. And if we're not aware of this, we got to be on guard about it. We're so conditioned for this incremental, if I put a little bit of work in, I want to see results. If I work for a week, I need to see a paycheck. If I work on a project, I need to see a completed result. I need to see progress. We're so if I go get if I clean up my diet this week, man, my pants better fit just a little better next. I better see some sort of progress of the sacrifice I'm making. Otherwise, I'm not going to stay on that path, right? I mean, how many people would lose weight, you guys, if you had to do diet and exercise for a month before you saw 1% of the progress? Like virtually nobody in America would stay on that path. Like if all the results came in month 12 and nothing came in, so you guys all agree it's generally true? I mean, it's kind of a ridiculous thing, but would that be true?
Yes,
Well,
100%.
isn't that kind of what entrepreneurship is? Because think about it, you guys, entrepreneurship is very nonlinear. It's not incremental. There's no like, all right, I'm 1 year in and like I should be, by year two, I should be this, 30% more than year one. And like it just doesn't look like that. Because I'm going to give you some income and all that numbers in a minute. I've made more money and built more wealth in the last 24 months than I have in the first 20 years of my business life. Like it's not incremental. It just doesn't work that way. And I think we need to embrace that because what happens is everybody starts with excitement and passion, and then you get to a Dallas event and you're pumped and you're fired up and you're renewed and you're restored and you got some whatever new tools are gonna unleash on us. But then all of a sudden it wanes 2 and 3 months after because you don't see these immediate results, right? And then or you recruit somebody and you don't get overrides right away. You got to put the investment up front and training them and getting them licensed and making calls with them and all that kind of stuff, right? Everything that we do requires enormous upfront investment for a down the road payoff, but you don't know when the down the road is and you don't know what the amount of the payoff is. And so those factors work against us when it comes to the decision point of, do I call this person today? Do I sit down for the next hour and make calls, or do I go get a couple errands done that need to get done? All of us, as I'm looking on the camera, all of us have enough life responsibilities. There's always something to do in a pocket of time you have that's like valuable to your life or important to somebody else or role or responsibility you have. So it's not like none of you guys are all like gaming on your in your basements like all day long instead of like making money. But the reality is there's always going to be a competition for your time and attention. But are you super clear on why you're doing this and what where it's going to take you? And do you have a process to reinforce that to yourself on a continual basis? Because I'd argue one of the things that you guys have with F3, just from the outside looking in, is you guys have a built-in mechanism of staying on that course because of the community and camaraderie that you've built within that group, right? And if I don't show up tomorrow morning, other guys are going to notice that I'm not there, right? I mean, would you guys say that's pretty accurate?
Yep.
So I
Yep.
think something for us to think about as a team, and some of it's already happening. I know some of you guys are talking offline, which I think is awesome. But like the more that we build that community and in that ongoing conversation, and I love that a lot of it's starting to come from you guys and not from me. That's the only way it makes sense and it works and is sustainable. But I just think that's incredible. The more we attach our days and our weeks to what we're doing and kind of accountable to each other, I think the more we're gonna stay on that course and get more results. So the price of success needs to be paid up front and needs to be paid in full for the reward. And then the second thing is you guys, there's always going to be obstacles, right? I mean, I could spend the rest of our hour together on delays and why the delays and this happened and that happened, all this stuff. But I guess I'm just so used to anything that's important to me coming with major obstacles between me and where I want to go that I just don't even think about them anymore. It's just I, I don't even have to do a mental exercise of like, all right, but I'm the guy that punches through walls, and like I used to have to do that before it was natural. But you do so much of that, and you just eventually that's just what you do. You just kind of know that that's going to happen, right? So I don't even view them as hardships. And so I would tell you to give you a business parallel, I don't enjoy when somebody cancels a meeting or I don't get a case closed or a teammate quits in business or some negative event happens in my life. A life insurance app. I just had a life insurance application, I don't know, a week ago get denied just medically. Like there's these negative things that happen in our business, right? That we don't want. We put work into something, we don't get the result. I'm willing to bet that stuff bothers me less than it bothers you, and it certainly bothers me less than it did 5, 10, 15 years ago. And you could argue there's a lot of factors of that. I'm just so used to there being hardships, and so I just want you guys to think about it as you're building out a plan for this year, because some of you need to flat put more work in, just more hours, more calls, more activity, just more time in the saddle. That's a big factor. Some of you need to maybe simultaneously increase the intensity of that work, right? The focus of that. Some of you need to sharpen the saw on skills, right? All of these things, but all of those are going to lead to more effective results. And so before I keep going on, because I want to talk about the miracle of compounding in a minute, but what thoughts do you guys have? Anybody, does this resonate with you guys? Or I know a lot of this is kind of surface level, if you not surface level, but just kind of abstract. But I wanted to set the tone for the year because I want to make a quantum leap this year personally. I want our team to make a quantum leap. I want our team to be unrecognizable a year from now. I'd love to go do a Claude's dinner next year and like pack out that room, that we were in, that we were probably at, let's say, half capacity this year, with new teammates and new spouses and deeper relationships. And I mean, that's just kind of like a fun visual of that. But I want a quantum leap, and I think it's going to take a quantum leap in our minds to get us there. So any thoughts on what I've shared here so far?
I mean, I know for me, a lot of this is resonating just in terms of there's going to be the setbacks, and I know I've had plenty of them, and especially like the most recent stuff that sounded very promising wasn't quite as promising as it could have been. But the more I keep doing it, the more time I put in and need to put in more, the more those things will happen. And then it just as like I believe this is going to go, it compounds. Like the more you do, the better you feel. The better you feel, I mean, the more you can do because you want to do it. It's kind
Yep,
of how
very
I
true.
kind
It
of
is it's a kind of a self-fulfilling process. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, Tyson, it's definitely been definitely been hitting home with me, and just what you said earlier of it's going to take more work than you think. That's really been the thing that's been on my mind the last few months. That to get back in the saddle and just be increasing that intensity, and do what you do.
Yeah, Shane, let's stay on that point right there, because that's immediately applicable to everybody on this call, including me. Is do we think it's true? I think it's true that we underestimate the work it's going to take to get to a goal, right?
Mm,
So
yep.
if you're already licensed with us, and you're already making money with us, and you already have at least some clients, maybe you got a teammate in business, and you're thinking about how do I turn this like something into like a career, right? Without getting lost in, some people need a certain level of income, other people need more or less or whatever. But I bet it's going to take incredibly more than what you have been putting in, because what's true of all of us is what you have been putting in has led you to the results that you currently have. So if each of you look at your last 12 months of whatever metric, how many people did I recruit? How many clients did I bring in? What did I actually make in business? And that's not relevant to everybody on the call here, but if you have 12 months of data, I mean, what's that old NFL coach, Dennis Green maybe said, you are what your record says you are, like you are what your record says you are, you know, and
They are who we thought they were.
they are who we thought we were. Yeah. But there's a record one too. Maybe it was a different coach.
Yeah.
But anyways, the idea would be this level of objective reality. That's tough, guys. I mean, I'm there with one of my kids right now, having some big struggles and having some deep conversations about like teaching him on what objective reality means, and it's tough. And I told him, I said, listen, most adults either can't do this or aren't willing to. They aren't willing to look in a mirror and be real when nobody else is around. They don't have to smoke screen or inflate numbers or a story to anybody else. It's just them in a mirror and real honest with what they've actually put into this goal. Most people just aren't willing to do it. They lie to themselves. They're delusional about what they've done, what they think they're worth, what they think they deserve, and that leads to discontentment. It leads to people feeling entitled. It just leads to all sorts of negative things. So this idea of objective reality, which I'm like, okay, I need to break that down. So reality is like truth, and objective would be like real, like what's really true? What's the real truth of where you're at right now? And I think that's an exercise that we all need to put into play, because you guys, I'm going to give you some numbers about compounding here in a minute, but I'm just going to tell you where I'm going with this. My goals are really no longer goals that could be measured on a spreadsheet. I won't say that I don't have like metrics, or I want to hit like if I'm not over seven figures in income in a few years, I think that would be a problem, because that just means it's the law of the lid. That means there's not a growth on our team enough team, and you guys aren't winning like. But that's not my primary goal. That to me that'll be kind of like a lagging indicator, not a leading indicator. If my goal is okay, I just need to go make 1 million, that's not going to help you guys grow, right? So that should be the natural byproduct of a team growing. But my whole thing is, and this gets down to why I'm doing this office, frankly, is they're more qualitative things. I want to have deeper relationships with teammates and have more connection and more purpose and more this idea of this crusade, right? I want to be more mission focused. I want to feel more excited about what I do on a continual basis and get back into, that raw excitement I had when my first couple years in business, right? And like there's things like that are important to me because I think those are going to be the leading indicators that'll lead to all kinds of other results. And some of you guys should probably have that written down too. Because I used to have detailed business plans and goals and what do I want to accomplish and how would that make me feel and why is that important? Like all this, I guess I got files of all that stuff and not on a real time basis, but from time to time I'll go back and look at those and it's fun to think back to where I was at and what I was feeling and think back to what was going on. But anyways, you guys, I just think that that's important. Let's be real about it. Most of us need to put a lot more than what we're putting into this business if we want a real result, right? I mean, if I just like go down to my basement gym and just like walk on the treadmill like twice a week for 20 minutes at a time, like, am I really going to change my body this year? No, I'm not. Not only that, I'm getting older. So like by definition, I'm going to get less fit and less healthy by just maintaining the status quo unless I counteract that, right? And that's obviously true of all of us, but you understand that, right? Isn't that kind of true of our business? Like the longer you tread water here, I don't think you just like assimilate knowledge and experience and information. I think the longer you tread water here, I think the more dangerous it becomes that you might eventually hop out of the pool, frankly. And so I think we need to be proactive about that. Way more activity. Alex said something to me last night. I'm hopefully he's okay with sharing it, but it's Alec, I'm gonna tell you in front of everybody else. It's the first time you've said something that I really caught my attention in an exciting way in a little while relative to your goals. So Alec we were kind of talking business and all that. And he even led this call with like, he's got more passive income than he's ever had. But then he told me his stretch goal. And he's like, my goal used to be to pick up like, I think you said 1.5 million a year. I could
Two
be
and a half, yeah.
2.5, right? Same difference. But anyways, you're like, my stretch goal is 10 million this year. And I'm like, now we're talking. I mean, guys, I've never picked up 10 million in a year in my life. I've gotten close a couple years. But which version of Alec is going to pick up more money this year? The version that's truly content with 2.5 million, or spending his whole year trying to hunt down 10? Like I'll put my money on the horse that's hunting down 10 all year, even if he ends up at 6.8, right? And that's just one aspect of his goals. But you guys, I think that was exciting to hear because we need to get out of the mold of like, yeah, I'm not making what I want to make here, but my bills are still paid, and it's hey, I'm having fun with the guys, and I love what we do, and we kind of put the dream under our pillow at night. Yeah, maybe one day I'll be full time, and this will be awesome. Like I mean, the Hawaii trip is fun to talk about, right? There's three people. The Hawaii trip affects people in three ways in our company. Okay. There's the people that go for it and make it and have a life-changing experience. And that's about, just to give you guys a number. That's 3% of our company. Or actually, I don't know it's 2 to 3%. If you do the math, that's what they always tell us, some sort of stat when we're out there. But about 2 to 3% of the company makes Hawaii every year. And then there's another group of people, and this would be something I would guess at, but I bet there's another single digit percentage of people in the company. So if 500 people make it, I bet there's another 1,000 to 1,500 people that are really going for it. Like really going for it. They've either made it in the past, or they know they're close, or they're, it's a big priority on their team or or with their leader. They're tracking it. They know where they're at. They know what the requirement is. Like that what in the world? I'm just not going to answer that call. They're really going for it. So let's just say that that's another 7 or 8% of the company. It's not 20%, I promise you. It's not 50%. Because there's like 85 to 90% of our company that doesn't give it 1 second of thought. Like it's just not even on their radar. Like, oh yeah, I think WFG does some sort of Hawaii, or yeah, my leader goes to Hawaii every year. Well, that's for him. I mean, they just haven't given it 10 seconds of thought of, wow, like that would actually be amazing to be able to have somebody else to pay for my wife and I to fly to this exotic destination and take us out to, super awesome dinners every single night and take us sailing and all this kind of stuff they do. And so we're so detached from that. That trip has no power. That incentive has no power in our daily lives. And I just want to put you guys in. So one of the reasons why we did Alaska, and we're going to do other trips in the future here, is I do want to create some experiences for us to build relationships and share memories and build camaraderie. But it's also to give you guys something to like a stepping stone. Like if you go and when we do a next trip, which isn't next month and also won't be 5 years from now, but my general thought on it, Lee and I actually have spent some time talking about it, is everybody's going to be invited on the trip. Like if like hey, we're gonna go to XYZ location on these dates. Here's the registration details. If you want to attend, click this link and make it happen. So everybody's welcome. But if you do X, Y, and Z in business, we're gonna pay all of your expenses. If you just do X and Y, we're gonna pay some of your expenses. If you just do X, we give you a little something. That kind of setup. I think I like that setup. Um, but I'm trying to create this mechanism where you guys, are okay. I can envision that's a possibility, right? And I just want to challenge you guys to really be thinking about this because all these things need to go towards massively increasing our daily work and intensity in our business. And then I want to get to one final thing as we're wrapping up today, which is the miracle of compounding. And Alec and I were talking. What got me talking about all this today is the conversation Alec and I had last night. And I'm like, people just don't understand how compounding works, right? If people actually understood the miracle of compounding, they would save more money in their retirement plans, right? But the problem is we don't see enough results. We have the pain of saving the money versus something we'd rather use it for in our lives this year. So we have that pain up front. And there's always a useful justification of that money, right? Well, we really need to do this in the house, and we haven't taken a real vacation in a couple of years, or whatever it is, right? There's always a useful justification for that money. There's always I'll save more next year excuse we tell ourselves, right? There's always well, I'll get a raise here soon. When I do, then I'll change it, or then I'll save that extra. So we lie to ourselves about what we're going to do in the future, and then we see a little bit of growth, we see a little bit of interest, a little bit of gain, and then heaven forbid the market goes down. And well, crap, I actually have less in my account than I even saved. Well, this is stupid. We would have been way better off just taking the kids to Disney World. At least we would have had that experience. You guys get what I'm saying? But 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 if you look at most portfolios, it's fun, guys, 24 years in, looking at a lot of my client accounts. I mean, a lot of my clients in a bull market in the last couple of years, my goodness, like the gains that they've made are more than they've made in 6, 8, 10 years before that, right? And that's how it works. Like you got to do the right things up front, and you never know when the real results are going to compound, when it's going to happen. We generally know I'm eventually going to have more money than I start with, but that process is a brutal process. And we've known since the beginning of time about compound interest, and yet we live in a country where most people have almost nothing to show for 20, 30 years of working for a company somewhere. They just have nothing to show for it other than the paycheck that hit their bank account last month and relatively chump change. I was with a client an hour ago, doing an annual review, and he's a construction worker, real blue collar guy, couldn't be a better guy, but he's 64 years old. He's like, I can't physically do this job much longer. And if he scrapes everything together, of which I manage almost all of it, he's got about $270,000 to his name. You guys, that's brutal. I mean, it's brutal. like all the work that guy's been put in for 30, 35 years. And that's what he has to show for it. And he's gonna eke through retirement, but it's gonna be Social Security and a very limited fixed income and trying to do side work when he can. That's the reality, guys. That's America. But let me tell you, guys, let me tell you compounding in this business. And most of you guys know some of these numbers, or some of you do. You know, my income's grown every single year for the last 15 years, which I'm really proud of. This past year was the 15th year of that. But just in the last 2 years, guys, my income has gone from 540,000. Last year I finished at 732, and then a week ago I just finished at 813,000. So like that's more growth. I mean, just the growth, that's a quarter million in growth, just about more than that. And I mean, guys, it took me like 13 years in this business just to like make a quarter million in a year. Like that's crazy if you think about it. So you got to have knowledge that you're on the right path. I've yet to ever see another path out there that that better rewards the price of success and putting the work in personal development. You know, there's a lot of places you can do elements of what we do. I've never seen a better path out there for average and ordinary people like me. I don't have abnormal athletic abilities or abnormal technical abilities or software engineer kind of stuff. I'm not a medical doctor. Guys, if I just made that my mission in life to be a neurosurgeon, I promise you I wouldn't make it just academically. It's just not who I am, right? So the reality is, I've never seen a better path. So you have to have this confidence. I'm on the right path, but I need to step up what I'm putting into it massively because we can't lie to ourselves that just because you're on the right path and just because others that are on that same path are winning massively, that if all you do is stay on that same path, you're going to win like them. That's the big trap, right? That's the big trap is like, man, if I just hang around long enough, maybe I'll go to Hawaii too. If I just hang around long enough, I'll make six figures too, you know? And you guys, it's just not the case. I mean, I could give you, I mean, you guys, my investment accounts were up north of $500,000 last year. You guys know how long it took me to. I still remember the first Roth IRA contribution I did. The first year Leah and I decided, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to max out Roth IRAs for Leah and I. We were just climbing out of the hole. This was 2013. I had never. I put a little bit of money in a Roth when I was like 22 or 23. And then for 10 years, I did not fund a Roth IRA in my life, believe it or not, because all of the money I was making was going right back into my business or being spent or all sorts of things. And in 2013, I'm like, this is crazy that we don't save money. We really can't afford to do it because she had just quit her job. And like, I mean, again, all the excuses, all the justifications. But I'm like, I'm just going to make this happen and we're going to figure it out. And that first year of maxing out Ross was painful. I've had a couple years where it's been those early years where it was March when I'm just barely getting money in for the prior year. But like just maxing out and maxing out and maxing out and maxing out. You guys, I've got over $1 million today in Roth accounts here 11 years later. Like, that's crazy. And by the way, most of that compounding has been in the last 2 years. So, you know, because that's the path we're on. And so I'm just trying to draw these lessons to you because they're reinforcing for me why um why what we do is so critical because we can connect these two things. The personal development that you're going through and the activity increase that we all need to have is going to probably actually get you to your goals this year, but along the way you're going to help so many other people on their pathways of saving money and and maybe one final point I want to open up to you guys. I told Alec this has been a major perspective change for me, and some of you might hear this and be like, "Well, that's not an issue for me," and that's fine, but it was for me. I used to read articles. Sometimes I'd question how much value I add to people, or maybe even the market's down. You're like, man, am I really making a difference? We all feel that on some level and on some way. Does what I do really matter? Right? I feel that as a dad sometimes. I don't know if you guys can relate to that. Like, man, it's all the work I put into this, like really help this child or whatever the case is. but you guys, there used to be there's a lot of articles out there that slam financial advisors because they basically say, hey, if you take the fees that you pay to an advisor, like your advisor ends up like taking like a 30-year money over 30 years kind of thing. And that's a compound interest calculator. But that's only one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is how much money my clients have that they would have never had they not met me because I got them to save money they otherwise would have spent. I got them to invest it in more in stocks than like target date funds or balanced funds or crappy insurance products or you name it. And so, you guys, most of my clients were up 20 to 27% last year when I just look across the board. And virtually everything, right? Variable annuities killed it. Trans one accounts killed it. 401k accounts killed it, right? It was a great year in the market. Like so the value is immense. And you guys, that helps me contact more people. That gives me more confidence when I'm in front of somebody saying, I think you should roll this money over. Because internally, I know they're better off having me manage it than leaving it where it's at. It gives me more confidence when I see how effective my VULs have grown and worked and serviced my life, and I've used the money a couple times along the way and put it back in there. It gives me that much more confidence when I look at somebody and said, let me tell you why I think this VUL is so important. It's not just what this illustration looks like, it's what does owning this product do for you in your life. And that inner confidence probably is a big deal and why I close at the rate I close. Because I think that comes across in my tone of voice and making eye contact with somebody and being just locked and loaded into why this is the right thing for them. So I'm trying to hopefully connect some dots for you guys on the path to success and the miracle of compounding because you guys are all on the right path. I'm just trying to get you moving quicker down that path to get you to where that path can lead. So any thoughts and any comments as we wrap up here?
I think it's just thinking bigger and actually putting in the work and just knowing that if you did it, Tyson, that we all can do it. With all the struggles you and Leah must have had to not be able to fund an IRA, like that's just
Yeah.
crazy to me. I would never have thought that.
Yeah, that's true. And by the way, that's a true statement. If I can do it, you guys can definitely do it. And I hope, by the way, I hope that maybe some things I've said have been a little convicting because I just want you guys to know that's how I feel when I go to big events. That's how I feel when I talk to certain leaders that I talk to on an ongoing basis. Is they'll say things and they not sometimes they say things that I know they're just updating me on what they just did or what the team did last month. They're not telling me to like impress me or to convict me, but just when I can recognize the level they're flying at or what they expect or the work they're putting in, like I'm like, wow, I'm not where he's at in that area. And it convicts me, right? And that's one of the reasons I couldn't be clearer with you guys. I'm not going to Dallas just because I'm supposed to, right? I'm going to Dallas because it convicts me. Because I don't know who it'll be. It'll be one or two speakers, and it might be parts of what they each say. But I'll be like, you know what? I need to step it up in that area or this area. And because this is part of growth and development, and it's tough, and it's something that it's a lot easier to Netflix and chill, and it's a lot easier to get really excited about Wild Card Weekend this weekend. It's more comfortable to listen to podcasts about matchups this weekend than it is about personal growth and development. But you guys, that's where all the fulfillment comes from, right? And so I just want to challenge you guys with what we've said today. Nothing I've said is to impress you or to prove something to you guys. Um, but it's just this idea of like sometimes you don't realize how far you've come unless you look back to where you were. And it just reinforces to me all these years later that we're on this incredible path, but this path will only take you to the destination that you put the work into because it leads to an amazing destination, but so many people just don't go all the way down the path. They don't reach the summit. They never see the view, or they step off the path, or they think the hill's a little too steep, or they think there's a shorter path over there. Man, I've just seen it my whole career. inside our team, outside of our team. I've seen it. I see it everywhere in real life. People switching jobs, changing careers, trying this, trying that. They're just looking for a quicker path. And yes, right, wrong, or indifferent, I chose a path and I've stayed on one path and I've made a few modifications along that path in terms of business model and all that that we've talked about. But I've stayed on the same path and I just it's hard for me to imagine what my life would be like if we didn't have the views we have today and all the experiences along the way. So that's my goal for this year. We're going to jump into more training and some more how-tos and kind of specifics next year, or I'm sorry, next week as we lead into Dallas. But you guys, I hope hopefully I've given you guys some things to think about because the one thing I don't want to wait for with Dallas until the week of is this is if you really want to maximize Dallas, you need to be running into that thing with some serious momentum in your business. If you're just like strolling in there hoping you get inspired, you will, but it's going to wash off in 48 to 72 hours because you're going to come right back to a business with no momentum and nobody around you and no more energy. And you're just going to be right back to where you were. So momentum is a fickle thing. It doesn't take a lot to get it going, but man, it can end quick. So if I were you guys, I'd be really focused on the next what we got 3 weeks or something before Dallas. I'd be hyper focused on how many calls can I make, how many meetings can I line up, can I start getting some client cases going, can I get a possible recruit, can I get some things moving in my business so that I have momentum going into that event. That would be the big challenge heading out of this training. And hopefully we'll cover things the next couple weeks to give you guys some specific how-tos and all that. And that's where we're at. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Love y'all. We'll be in touch and keep it rolling.
All right, take care.